Thank you. The next item of business is a statement by Neil Gray on ministerial events. The Cabinet Secretary will take questions at the end of his statement, and therefore there should be no interventions or interruptions. I call on Cabinet Secretary Neil Gray. Up to 10 minutes, please.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I'm providing this statement to Parliament on ministerial events and engagements in response to a request from other parties. Members will be aware of media reports in recent days noting that I attended sporting events in my capacity as a minister. All of the information contained in these reports is derived from the Scottish Government's proactive publication of the ministerial engagements. In other words, these engagements are known about because we routinely and systematically publish details of all ministerial engagements. This is, of course, Presiding Officer, in line with the Ministerial Code. For as long as there have been ministers here in Scotland and in the rest of the UK, they have attended a range of engagements and events in their official capacity, as is right. Attendance is one part of government business that allows ministers to engage and build relationships with key stakeholders and to help promote Scotland as a place to visit, work and invest in. I'm sure members will recognise that sport and major sporting events are one such critical sector, bringing significant economic benefits to Scotland and acting as a key driver in improving the health and well-being of our nation. Sport also provides a significant platform to engage, both domestically and internationally, on a range of different issues. As the Cabinet Secretary for Health, I have attended a number of sporting events in order to demonstrate my support and the Scottish Government's support to the governing bodies of sport, competitors and officials. I'll come on to speak in further detail about my own attendance at sporting events and football matches in a second, and to set out for this Parliament the detail of these engagements and my engagement in line with the Scottish Ministerial Code. Before I do so, I want to make one thing very clear. The role of ministers in attending events is clearly long established. It is undertaken by ministers here and in every other administration in the UK. Indeed, I expect that there are ministers across the UK this week attending events, including sporting events, as official engagements. That is right. I point this out to make crystal clear that attendance at such events is legitimate. What would not be legitimate would be to use that role as a way to pursue non-ministerial interests, including as a fan. It is a matter of regret to me, Presiding Officer, by attending 4 Aberdeen games that I have given the impression of acting more as a fan and less as a minister. I did, of course, attend other football games, Scotland men's teams games, and other sporting events. But when it comes to domestic football, I should have ensured I went to see teams other than Aberdeen. It was not planned that way, but I should not have allowed that situation to develop. I should have made sure that I attended a wider range of games and not just Aberdeen, and I apologise for my error. Presiding Officer, it is a well-established and recognised rule, as set out in the Scottish Ministerial Code, that ministers should not accept any gifts, hospitality or services from anyone that would or might reasonably appear to place them under any obligation to people or organisations. This is, as the Code also sets out, primarily a matter of judgment for ministers who are personally responsible for deciding how to act and conduct themselves in light of the Code and for justifying their actions and conduct to Parliament and to the public. It is on this basis that I was happy to accept the opposition party's calls for a statement on these matters today and to take the opportunity to set out clearly the full facts of my own attendance at sporting events, in line not only with my ministerial responsibilities, but obligations incumbent on me as set out in the Ministerial Code. I have focused my remarks here on those engagements being reported on in the media, but would be happy to provide further information on any of the sporting events I have attended in my ministerial role. I attended the Viaplay Cup semi-final at Hampden Park on the 4th of November 2023 at the invitation of the SPFL. I had discussions with key stakeholders on the work of the SPFL Trust in supporting community wellbeing across Scotland. I heard how sports chaplaincy services support top-level athletes in Scotland and held discussions on the significant contribution football can make to the wellbeing economy. I attended the Viaplay Cup final at Hampden Park on the 17th of December 2023 as a guest of the SPFL. I engaged in discussions with key stakeholders relating to the issue of pyrotechnics at football matches, planning for the European Championships in Germany, and potential opportunities for business engagement, and again on how football can continue to support community well-being, both through participation and through engagement with those in the surrounding communities, particularly around the festive holidays. I attended the Scottish Cup semi-final at Hampden Park on the 20th of April 2024 at the invitation of the Scottish FA. I had a detailed discussion about investment into the sport, particularly at grassroots level, and the impact which football clubs can have as anchor organisations in their local communities, delivering a wide range of social benefits. I attended a football match at Pittodrie in Aberdeen on the 15th of May 2024 as a guest of the Aberdeen Community Trust. This was part of a wider programme of events that day in Aberdeen to coincide with Mental Health Awareness Week, which included the announcement by me of new funding for the new Changing Rooms Extra Time programme, a mental health roundtable meeting, a meeting with mental health charity Sam H, a roundtable meeting with the SPFL Trust, and a visit to St Macha Academy. As is noted, each of these engagements provided key opportunities to speak with and hear from key stakeholders. A number of substantive discussions have been held, for example, around our ongoing work to increase investment into grassroots sport, on the wider social benefits that clubs can bring to local communities, and how sporting events can help attract business investment. In addition to these Aberdeen games, and for completeness, Presiding Officer, I attended the Scotland versus Norway match at Hampden in November 2023, the World Indoor Athletics in Glasgow also in March this year, the Open Golf Championship in Troon in July this year, and the Scotland-Portugal game at Hampden last month. Whilst not all ministerial events attended will involve meetings that are minuted, there is a summary note available of topics covered during discussions at the majority of these engagements being reported on as aligned to obligations at 4.23 and 4.24 within the Ministerial Code to ensure that discussions relating to government business are appropriately recorded. Ministers attending events in a ministerial capacity use government transport. In planning travel, all ministers adhere to a set of guiding principles set out in the Ministerial Code around propriety, efficient use of resources, cost consciousness and security. All travel arrangements for ministers are made in line with corporate travel policy and government car service guidance. On occasion, and depending on the nature of an official ministerial visit, guests, including family members, are allowed to attend. However, this is generally at no cost to the taxpayer. For completeness, Presiding Officer, I was joined at 6 football matches, including Scotland games, by a family member or guest. They travelled with me, but this did not come at any additional cost to the taxpayer. Presiding Officer, I hope the detail I have provided here assures colleagues that all my engagements always official ministerial business. Ministers across these islands, whether SNP, Labour or previously Conservative ministers in London, are right to attend sporting events as ministers. It is crucial we engage support sport and are seen to do so. That said, Presiding Officer, I am a football fan. I follow Aberdeen. But I should not have allowed the impression to be given that this played any role in my engagements, and I am sorry for my error. Thank you.
Thank you. The Cabinet Secretary will now take questions on the issues raised in the statement. I intend to allow around 20 minutes for questions, after which we will move on to the next item of business. I would invite those members who would wish to seek to ask a question if they could press the request to speak buttons. And I call Rachel Hamilton.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Neil Gray used government limos to watch his favourite football team. These trips were all billed to the taxpayer. But Neil Gray seems to be saying he wasn't wrong to charge taxpayers. He was just wrong only to go to Aberdeen games. He has today apologised for giving the impression of acting more as a fan and less as a minister. He hasn't just given that impression, that's exactly what he did. He wasn't even the sports minister when he went to some of these games. This is pathetic. These excuses are an embarrassment. He is treating the public as fools. This scandal demands a ministerial code investigation because it looks like Neil Gray has misused taxpayers' money for his own benefit. So will he agree now to refer himself to the independent adviser so that this can be fully investigated? And, presiding officer, Neil Gray took family members and guests to these games in limos paid for by the taxpayer. Does that not confirm beyond all doubt that these meetings were not government business but a jolly to watch the football? Taxpayers have been duped and they must be refunded in full. Doesn't Neil Gray agree that he must repay the public for all these trips in full?
Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. No, these were a legitimate use of ministerial resources. It is not unusual. In fact, it is explicitly covered in the Code that on occasion family members can accompany ministers to ministerial events, and that has happened previously, and I expect it will continue to happen. In terms of the suggestion from Rachel Hamilton around the ministerial code, that's a matter for the First Minister to consider. And of course, I reflect upon the points that Rachel Hamilton makes. Of course I do, around the appropriateness of the situation. And I've set out in my statement the apology that I have made for giving the impression of acting more as a fan than a minister. And of course I will continue to give consideration to the points that she makes as I consider the way in which I conduct my business going forward.
I call Neil Bibby.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I thank the Cabinet Secretary for advance sight of his statement. Ministers and shadow ministers have always attended sports events to support our national teams and to meet with governing bodies. The attendance of ministers, where appropriate, should be supported by the government. That is not in question. The key question is whether the correct protocols and rules were followed. Engagements to discuss government business should be attended by a civil servant and be fully minuted. Neil Gray today has apologised for his error and he said he is happy to provide further information. The Aberdeen versus Livingston match at Pittodrie has raised particular eyebrows. Can the Cabinet Secretary confirm that all of the engagements were by official invitation? Will he publish who he met on each occasion and the minutes on what issues were discussed for all, not just the majority of the matches? And can he confirm whether a civil servant was in attendance at each of those matches?
Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you. I thank Neil Bibby for his question and for outlining the principle of ministers, both here, past, present and future, attending sporting events, cultural events, business events, as ministers and MSPs will do. The events in question have been released, have got a proactive release to it, and there is a summary note of those engagements. Officials have attended, I believe, I'll need to double check, I believe all of these events with me. And there will be a note available in terms of what was discussed, as I've set out in my statement.
I call Rona Mackay to be followed by Craig Coy. Ms Mackay.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The Scottish Government's commitment to transparency is clear, proactively publishing a wide range of information relating to ministerial car journeys, events, costs and more. Meanwhile, UK and Welsh Government transparency publications are more limited in the information they provide and appear to be available less frequently too. Does the Cabinet Secretary agree that the UK Government, and indeed other governments across the UK, should be striving to match the high standards of transparency set by the Scottish Government?
Before I ask the Cabinet Secretary to resume, I've put up with a bit of noise here, but I'm not putting up with it any longer. we know from the rules in terms of courtesy and respect that one person has the floor and the others don't. Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you. I thank Rona Mackay for her question. Of course, I've set out the rules and the transparency that's available here in terms of Scottish ministers' engagements and the publication around that. I understand why Rona Mackay raises the prospect of ministers in other governments. However, I'm here predominantly to speak about the issues that are facing my own conduct, and so I'll let it rest at that.
I call Craig Hoy to be followed by Emma Harper. Mr Hoy.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. Neil Gray cheered on Aberdeen from the comfort of VIP seats, and he repeatedly expected the Scottish taxpayer to pay to get him there and back. The Minister has now admitted that he didn't travel alone to these football matches. As he climbed into his ministerial limousine, showing off to his family and friends, didn't Neil Gray realise for just 1 minute that he was abusing his position and taking the taxpayer for a ride? And before he loses what's left of his credibility, will he now commit to paying the money back and asking the First Minister, who is sitting next to him, to allow a full investigation into this scandal?
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, I thank Craig Hoy for his question. It's not unusual for ministers, for MSPs to attend sporting events, to attend business events, to attend awards ceremonies and to be accompanied by guests. It's also within the code that that can take place and for family members to be able to accompany ministers in ministerial transport. Now, of course, I reflect upon the question that Craig Hoy puts to me around the proportionateness of that, and I will do going forward, but it's a well-established principle, both in terms of government ministers and opposition MSPs around attendance at some of these events with guests. I think I will rest at that point.
I call Emma Harper to be followed by Paul Sweeney. Ms Harper.
Thanks, Presiding Officer. Opposition members appear to suggest government ministers should not be attending events in an official capacity that relate to their ministerial portfolio responsibilities. Does the Cabinet Secretary think that ending this practice would be beneficial or detrimental to the work of the Scottish Government?
Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Attending events allows ministers to undertake vital engagement with key partners who contribute towards a multitude of governmental outcomes such as tackling child poverty, improving health and well-being, reducing crime, improving educational attainment, increasing social inclusion. Without forming these relationships, we would be unable to work with partners like the football authorities to tackle some of our most difficult societal challenges, such as racism, sectarianism, homophobia, disorder and misuse of pyrotechnics. Only with genuine partnership and frequent engagement can we hope to make progress on these issues.
I call Paul Sweeney to be followed by Emma Roddick. Mr Sweeney.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. The Cabinet Secretary clearly wasn't keen on joining the infamously long queues at Mount Florida train station after these fixtures due to the totally inadequate train service to Glasgow Central. So what efforts is the Scottish Government taking to improve public transport links to the National Stadium for those who do not have the benefit of a chauffeured ministerial car?
Cabinet Secretary.
So I am very well aware of the queues at Mount Florida. I have experienced those, like Paul Sweeney, and I'm more than happy to take up a discussion with him around the travel arrangements around major events such as sporting events at Hampden.
I call Emma Roddick to be followed by Patrick Harvey. Ms Roddick.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Can the Cabinet Secretary confirm that the Scottish Government will only approve use of government cars for what is official business?
Cabinet Secretary.
Yes, Presiding Officer, civil servants rightly will not and are simply not permitted to organise government cars for anything other than government business.
I call Patrick Harvey to be followed by Liam MacArthur. Mr Harvey.
Presiding Officer, most of the Cabinet Secretary's statement talks about which football matches he attended rather than how he got there. Can I be clear that if he'd attended all of these matches and travelled by bus, I wouldn't have the slightest problem with it, and I don't think most people would either? Isn't the real issue here that a great many ministers do treat chauffeur-driven cars as the default expectation? My experience is that you can get about without relying on them except in exceptional circumstances. There does need to be a government car service, but will the government review it to ensure that ministers always choose the most sustainable and affordable option?
Cabinet Secretary.
Patrick Harvey is absolutely right that ministerial cars need to be used for appropriate business. And I respect the position that Patrick Harvey comes at this from. I conduct a great many meetings. In fact, it's a rarity that I will be in a government car where I'm not conducting government business as part of the journey in the car. I'm conducting meetings, I am meeting with officials, I'm meeting with others, as well as phone calls. So there is a need. The well-established principle of the need for government cars is there, but I respect the position that Patrick Harvey takes in terms of the position that he has taken in the past as a minister.
I call Liam MacArthur to be followed by Claire Hockey. Mr MacArthur.
Thank you. I acknowledge the Cabinet Secretary has offered an apology, which I think suggests he recognises that this does not look good. It's crucial, as he says, that ministers are able to engage with a wide variety of stakeholders in a wide variety of ways. It's important too, obviously, that public perceptions of impartiality are not, as in this case, found to be, I think, let down. So this may be more of a question for the First Minister sat next to the Cabinet Secretary, but does he believe that there's perhaps a need for more detailed guidance about ministerial attendance at events to help prevent any appearance of inappropriateness or indeed bias?
Cabinet Secretary.
I thank Liam MacArthur for his question. I've already said in light of my statement, of course, I'm going to reflect upon the events that I attend. I will not stop attending sporting events or cultural events, business engagements, awards dinners, these types of things that Liam MacArthur raises. And it is a matter for the First Minister in terms of the ministerial code, and it's something that I know he's reflecting on.
I call Claire Hockey to be followed by Annie Wells. Ms Hockey.
Thank you. Can the Cabinet Secretary outline to Parliament the criteria for the use of government car service by ministers and Cabinet Secretaries?
Cabinet Secretary.
Yes, the criteria for use of government car service is well established. I've already set out in response to Emma Roddick that they can only be used, they will only be sanctioned by civil servants for the participation in government business.
I call Annie Wells to be followed by Fulton McGregor.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. My question is more for a point of clarity from the Minister's statement. During his statement, the Cabinet Secretary said he attended 6 games with a family member, but in the written copy of the statement it says 5, and I just wondered whether it was 6 or 5, or if you found one in the last hour, if it was just a typo. Thank you.
Cabinet Secretary.
For the completeness, it is 6, and that was me looking back again at the record on the proactive release. That is 6.
I call Fulton McGregor to be followed by Stephen Kerr. Mr McGregor.
Thanks, Presiding Officer. It seems that some opposition members are suggesting that government ministers should not be attending events in an official capacity. Said some. Can the Cabinet Secretary advise whether any of the opposition parties have come forward with proposals as to how and why they should be limited? Because most of the questions today haven't provided that, with the exception of Liam MacArthur.
Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you. I thank Philip McGregor for his question. I think it's clear, because I've been at some of these engagements where opposition members have been present, that there is a recognition across the chamber, I hope, of the importance of supporting sporting, cultural and other events that are critical to the fabric of our society. I'm clearly not here to talk about others. I'm here to reflect upon my own decision-making, and for that I have offered an apology and will continue to reflect on ensuring that, in light of the question from Liam MacArthur in particular, that I am conscious of how the decisions that are taken appear both within this place but also to the public.
I call Stephen Kerr to be followed by Douglas Lumsden. Mr Kerr.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Just for the avoidance of any doubt, no one is calling on ministers not to attend events such as the events that we're describing. But this is a mess entirely of Neil Gray's making. It says very clearly in the Scottish Ministerial Code, ministers must be satisfied that their travel arrangements could be defended in public. That's the problem here. These travel arrangements are not sustainable, And I think the statement that's been given today is so full of further questions. Sadly, I don't think the Cabinet Secretary has done himself any service here. So I'm going to ask again for clarity. How many officials accompanied the Cabinet Secretary to these meetings he says he had, which we believe he had? And if a member of the public FOI'd his office, would there be contemporaneous notes and minutes of the meetings he says he was attending at these football grounds?
Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you. I thank Stephen Kerr for his question. It is entirely appropriate for ministers to use ministerial resources to attend ministerial events. I've already set out that that is only possible, will only be sanctioned by civil servants when that is demonstrable. So that in all of these cases that is clear. What I have reflected upon and what I apologise for is the appearance that I have been acting more as a fan by attending, not getting the balance right between attending Aberdeen games and attending others. There is and there will be summaries of the discussions that have taken place, which is in accordance with the Ministerial Code. The Ministerial Code does not require minutes of meetings in that type of format, but yes, there will be, that will be available for all of these engagements that I've been participating in.
And I call Douglas Lumsden. Mr Lumsden.
Thank you. Can I ask the Cabinet Secretary, what other government business does he routinely take family and friends to? And when he was taking part in these meetings at the football grounds, did the family and friends also take part in these meetings, or where did they go?
Cabinet Secretary.
No, so it's normal and custom, and I have attended many events where other MSPs have guests with them. That is normal for events such as these, sporting events, for business events, awards ceremonies, cultural events, and it is also in order for them to travel on occasion, as has happened in the past, as will continue in ministerial transport. What is clear in the Ministerial Code is that when those occasions happen and when guests are with us, we must make sure that it's clear who is and who is not part of the ministerial party, and that has always been clear.
Thank you, Cabinet Secretary. That concludes the statement, and I will allow a short pause before we move on to the next item of business. Thank you.